Arsenal have let it all work out. After a Derby Day demolition of Nando's FC, Mikel Arteta's Gunners have taken full control of the title race. So from an Eberechi Eze masterclass to Mikel Arteta's secret tactical change, the first ever league start for Piero Nketiah, and why exactly things are about to get even more exciting. As per, let's break it all down and discuss the 5 things we learned from Arsenal 4, Tottenham 1. Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Bass14. Welcome back to your boys' channel. And Nando's FC has been smoked. Arsenal are still top of the Premier League, and we have so much to break down. So as per, my friends, smash a like on the video if you do enjoy, and subscribe to the channel if you are new, helping your boy as we close into 250,000 subscribers. But starting off with the first thing, and that is Nketiah has arrived on a day that Arsenal had a beautiful beginning. That insane Arsenal tifo shown before the game of all the best ever Arsenal North London derby moment. And of course, so many recents, the Gabriels, the Sakas and the Odegaards. But you also had Thierry Henry and Sol Campbell. The tifo set the tone for the game as Mikel Arteta made only one major change, and that was giving a first ever Premier League start to Piero Nketiah. Stepping up in the absence of Gabriel Magalhaes was never going to be easy, but Nketiah did his job, dropping a 6.7 SofaScore rating with 1 tackle won, 1 interception, 4 clearances and 5 recoveries, 3 out of 3 aerial duels won, as well as 92% of passes completed. The idea of playing as Arsenal's central centre-back in that build-up phase, further indication of the trust that Mikel Arteta gives this guy on the ball. Nketiah's performance was definitely underrated, not only completely dominating Richarlison, but in his first ever start alongside William Saliba playing as a centre-back, you could see a sense of a partnership straight away. Having seen Arsenal last year just about survive without Gabriel, as we got ourselves into a Champions League semi-final, as solid as Jakub Kiwior was at that time, in this game you could see straight away why Nketiah is definitely an upgrade. A player that has a far higher level of natural aggression. You can see that he's got that South American dart, so for a performance that would definitely go unnoticed, this was Nketiah truly arriving as an Arsenal player. To make your first ever Premier League start and that be in a North London derby, with the way that Arsenal dominating in that first half and breaking through the Spurs line, this guy's underrated passing range played a massive part, as Gabriel Magalhaes was replaced, sat on the Arsenal bench and seen celebrating. And it would not be a North London derby if you did not have Gabriel Magalhaes have a go at Spurs. And here he was after the game wearing the shirt of Eberechi Eze, holding up the man of the match award and the match ball, in a photo that he tagged Richarlison, getting his own back after of course Richarlison tagged Gabriel after winning a man of the match award in a pre-season friendly. You can win your games in pre-season, but in the real games when it matters the most, let's just leave it to the Arsenal players instead. But in a game that you also had Riccardo Calafuri starting as a left back after pulling out of the international break for Italy, with reports claiming of the player managing his league, in this game he dropped a 6.8 SofaScore rating, with 3 tackles won, 2 interceptions, 2 clearances, 3 recoveries and 4 ground duels. Up against a very tricky winger in Mohamed Kudus, Calafuri's performance was definitely very underrated, locking down Kudus time and time again, given a very progressive wide forward, next to no room to thrive whatsoever. There was some talk of Calafuri playing of course as that left centre-back, but in this game it was yet another example of why the profile of Calafuri playing as a left back is so important. The way that he's given freedom to roam the pitch, as well as making runs in between the midfield lines. He always gives the Arsenal back three an option to find him into midfield, and that's where he becomes a bit of a low block killer, comfortable at receiving the ball under pressure and then bouncing the ball forward. This by no means was a masterclass, but when you think about his combination alongside Leandro Trossard, there's a reason why as things stands, Calafuri is also starting left back in the Premier League, and it all goes down to Mikel Arteta looking at his wide forward and trying to find the best combinations. With the return of Noni Madueke, here's where things get interesting. A different type of left forward to Leandro Trossard, being naturally left footed able to hold the width. That's where you may have to keep an eye on Miles Lewis-Skelly. But in a game that Calafuri was solid in, here he was after the game alongside Piero Nketiah, Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Magalhaes, holding a scarf that says make it happen. But moving on to Arteta's perfect adaptation, in a game that Arsenal were utterly dominant, with an XG of 2.14 to Spurs' 0.06. If it wasn't for a slight error from Martin Zubimendi, this should have easily been a 4-0 victory, as Arsenal had 57% of the possession, with 3 big chances and 17 total shots, with David Raya forced to make only 1 save. 4 goals from open play though for a team that apparently can't score without set pieces. We need to talk about Mikel Arteta's tactics and how they work perfectly. In a game, there was once again no Victor Gyökeres. Up front, of course, it was Mikel Merino, where in previous games we've seen Merino play inside that box, and sometimes get a bit lost. In this game, Arteta gave him the perfect role, playing as the ultimate false nine dropping deep, in a game that he dropped a 7.2 SofaScore rating, with 1 assist and 1 shot on goal. 44 touches and 1 big chance created. I want you guys to have a look at the player's heat map. A striker that was playing almost on the right hand side of midfield, and that was because Mikel Arteta was trying to confuse the Spurs defence. Playing Merino as a striker but dropping him deeper, not only was dragging the defenders out of position, but it was also constantly overloading the midfield. To put it simply, Spurs did not know what to do, and the prime example of this working is that first Arsenal goal. Merino drops deeper outside the box, and picks a lovely pass in behind for Leandro Trossard to score 4 goals from open play. After all the narrative that Arsenal relied on set pieces, It just goes to show when you have a midfielder playing up front, the profile of Merino being used as a false 9 in this game worked to perfection. But when you have a striker that isn't playing as a striker, the main reason for it to work has to be the players around him. That's why you had Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard making those runs in behind. Of course you had Eberechi Eze, and that's a player we're going to get onto. But you also have Martin Zubimendi. In a game that he dropped a 6.3 SOFA score rating, with 1 key pass and 83% of passes completed, 2 out of 2 tackles, 1 interception, 4 clearances and 3 recovery, but 1 unfortunate error led to a goal. I want you guys to have a look at Zubimendi's heat map. A number 6 that is so comfortable on the right hand side. When you think about Eberechi Eze, Bukayo Saka and Zubimendi, in this game their trio of rotations was causing so many problems. Because where in previous years Mikel Arteta's number 6 has always been a player that's stationary, in this Arsenal system that can be so fluid, time and time again you're going to see Zubimendi make runs into that final third, which once again confuses the opposition. In a game that I truly believe Mikel Arteta was tactically perfect. To see an Arsenal team so fluid, I'd argue in terms of the midfield of Rice, Zubimendi and Eze, this was by far their best game playing together. Not only understanding each other's strengths, but knowing where to move and how to be fluid, gave Arsenal an insane level of dominance. Moving on to the third thing, and that is let it all work out. In a game that was always going to be all about Eberechi Eze, after a summer where he was pursued by Tottenham Hotspur, but at the last minute made a call to Mikel Arteta to bring him to Arsenal, and the rest of course being history. Let's just say going into this game there was a bit of spice. As Spurs manager Thomas Frank said, "Who is Eze?" Just a day later, how ironic was it that Eberechi Eze scored a hat-trick, scoring the 400th hat-trick in Premier League history, as well as the first ever North London Derby Premier League hat-trick, becoming the first Arsenal player since Alan Sunderland in 1978 to score 3 goals and secure the match ball. 47 years in the making. Strikers like Van Persie, Henry, Ian Wright, players that couldn't achieve that feat. How perfect was it that as an Arsenal boy that was released at 13, arrived at the club after so many years of waiting, that he is the man to break that record. In a game that Eze dropped a 10 out of 10 rating, a hat-trick on an XG of 0.59, as well as 1 big chance created. In a game he had 6 shots and 4 on target, as well as 3 out of 3 successful dribbles. This was quite literally an Eze masterclass. The prime example of Mikel Arteta using him correctly as a number 10, with all the space that was being made by Mikel Merino dropping deeper. It was of the idea of giving Eze moments where he could use his ball striking from outside the box. Because in a year where he'd only scored 1 league goal for Arsenal so far this season, the 3 goals should not be a surprise whatsoever. Because how many times had we seen Eze in the same position where the keeper had made an insane save? These goals were a long time coming. As Eze said after the game, "I prayed for a hat-trick before the game, and God gave it to me." And can we just take a moment to appreciate the ball strike? Scoring goals from an XG of 0.08, 0.04 and 0.05. Left foot, right foot, fantastic finishes. This, my friends, was the perfect North London derby story. A man that was going to Spurs, it was all but happening. So many Arsenal fans hurt inside at the idea of losing an Arsenal by a Maverick, going to Tottenham Hotspur instead. But that's where credit must go to Andrea Berta, acting in that last minute to get that deal over the line. The fact that we're still without the Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard, and yet we were still able to smash Spurs 4-1. This was a coming of age moment for Eberechi Eze, and here he was in his beautiful scene alongside Mikel Arteta after the game, where both manager and player were both over the moon. You think about the celebration for that first Arsenal goal, the pure delight on Eze's face, the look of a man whose dream had finally come true. As Declan Rice said after the game alongside Eberechi Eze, it's all worked out. Moving on to the fourth thing, and that is the unsung hero. And the name, my friends, of the unsung hero is Leandro Trossard, the scorer of the first Arsenal goal today, having now been involved in 4 goals in his last 4 Arsenal games, assists against Burnley and Slavia Prague, a fantastic goal against Sunderland, and a very important goal against Tottenham. In a year that Arsenal fans had so much doubt about his future, talks of Trossard not getting a new Arsenal contract, reports coming out of interest from Germany, but Arsenal of course kept and stuck by him, and let's just say he's a player that thrives in the big games. Having now scored 6 goals against Liverpool, 4 against Chelsea and 4 against Tottenham, he now has 19 goals against the Premier League Big Six, which is 1 more than Premier League legend Ryan Giggs in 107 fewer appearances. In a game that he got a goal and an assist, as well as dropping a 7.8 SOFA score rating, with 2 key passes and 1 goal from 1 shot. A man that for Arsenal this year has been severely underrated, becoming that starter on the left hand side, and more importantly delivering on a week in week out basis. Having now got more goal involvements with 20 than any other Arsenal player in 2025, only 1 of 3 players in the Premier League to reach double figures for goals and assists this year, alongside Bruno and Enzo Fernandez. Let's just say whenever Trossard does score, Arsenal never lose, as Arsenal are 32 games unbeaten in games that Leandro Trossard has scored in all competitions. Just like Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus, this guy's scoring is definitely a good luck charm. But if we're going to talk about unsung heroes and players that I do believe are underrated, I have to talk about the performance of Bukayo Saka, because the stats don't do him justice. A 6.9 SOFA score rating with 2 key passes and 3 shots. The only Arsenal forward not to get a goal or an assist, but the impact still being undeniable. The way that he links up the Arsenal attacks on the right hand side, as well as being a player of very high gravity, the ability to attract players towards him on a consistent basis. Saka is for me our most imperious attacker, and that is because he is always our reference point. There will be games that Eze will score and Trossard will score, but Saka's a player that even without goals or assists, is always going to find a way to make an impact. In a year that he's got 3 league goals and 0 assists, for me it's only a matter of time. With the return of Victor Gyökeres or Martin Odegaard, Saka's numbers are going to explode, and when that happens, that could be the final nail in the coffin, as Arsenal of course get closer and closer to maybe, just maybe, getting over them. So moving on to the 5th thing, and that is better things are coming. And that, my friends, is kind of hard to understand. Despite Arsenal being 15 games unbeaten in all competitions, with 13 wins and 2 draws, we also continue the record of being unbeaten since 2010 in home North London derbies, having won 5 of the last 6, beating Spurs 4 times in the last 4 games. As Mikel Arteta said perfectly, I enjoyed every minute of that. To win with the goals that we scored against our rivals, it was a very special day. As enjoyable as the win was, likewise was this graphic after the game of Arsenal being 6 points clear top of the Premier League, 6 clear of Chelsea and 7 of Man City, and more surprisingly 11 points clear of Liverpool on a weekend that was once again gargantuan in the title race. First, of course, you had another surprise defeat for Liverpool, smashed at home 3-0 against 19th place Nottingham Forest. Arne Slot's slot machine doesn't seem to be working, despite spending £500 million. Breaking the British transfer record twice in the same window, a -1 goal difference, and being in the bottom half. It does make your boy wonder, just imagine that was Arsenal. Would we be getting even more slander? Then you had the result at St James's Park, as Man City were defeated 2-1 against Newcastle, in a game that Pep Guardiola was furious after the game, approaching the cameraman with so much anger. Once again, I asked the question, if that photo was not Pep and Mikel Arteta, would there be more made in the media? Regardless of the narratives, Arsenal are still top of the Premier League, and the team that as it stands is the closest is actually Enzo Maresca's Chelsea. After a 2-0 victory against Burnley, Chelsea of course moved to second, making that game next weekend even more interesting, as Arsenal go to Stamford Bridge against second place, with a chance to go 9 points clear in the title race. But as they say, you have to live in the moment, and Arsenal being top right now, winning games comfortably despite so many injuries, is why it gets even more exciting. In a game that saw the return of the matchday squad for Noni Madueke, coming off the Arsenal bench and playing on the left-hand side, you also had the return of Gabriel Martinelli, fit enough to be on the Arsenal bench, but still with no Gabriel, Odegaard, Jesus, Gyökeres or Havertz. Gabriel may be out for 1 to 2 months, but the 4 attackers are about to make the return. Despite Captain Martin Odegaard not being in the Arsenal squad to face Tottenham, he was a part of the Arsenal team that arrived at the Emirates Stadium, walking into the Arsenal dressing room and still trying to play a part. If reports and rumours are to be believed, an Odegaard return is around the corner. Likewise the case with Victor Gyökeres. And that's where you start to wonder if those players are still coming back, yet Arsenal are still 6 points clear at the top. We have not even seen the full version of Mikel Arteta's team this season, yet still we are finding a way to get the job done at a very successful rate. As Thierry Henry said after the game, people are talking about the process. It's not believing in the process anymore, it's happening. We have the best squad. You need to make sure that you can win the league. You need to act like you're the favourites. But that is the video there and there. So my friends, if you have enjoyed, smash a like and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to follow your boy on all of his social medias, the links are down below in the description. But that was the 5 things we learned from Arsenal 4, Tottenham 1. A beautiful result, a beautiful day, a beautiful tifo, and a beautiful sight of Arsenal still being top of the Premier League, my friends. Things are good right now. They're looking a bit nice and it was all working out. So my friends, I'll see you next time. Take care and in a bit.